Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I've had a number of people ask me in videos that I've done discussing belts, hey Jason, when should a novice put a belt on? When should they start lifting with a belt? Now, I need to make clear up front because this comes up. I've been doing this for many years. Many years. My stance on training has changed a bit over time. And in fact, in recent years, I've really adopted the approach of we need to do what works and not be dogmatic. All right, we've got to go with what the available evidence is, both with coaching elite athletes all around the world, looking at what the data and measurements and literature says. We have to go with the evidence. Okay, I'm not as dogmatic as I used to be. So when people will come in and say, but didn't you kind of promote beltless training at one time? Yeah, I did. And that was a very long time ago. Very long time ago. Therefore, it's irrelevant to the current context. That's just like if you were to go back to um, any field of research or area or a soft science or a hard science, and someone says, hey, this is what's going on, and then new data emerges, and then they change based on the new data. You don't go back and say, but didn't you say 5 years ago X? Be like, yeah, but that's been disproven, right? We don't use it anymore. Just because that's what used to be said doesn't mean that that's our current stance. So you've got to be realistic about that, guys, because that comes up every time. So I have accepted that the reality is belts are a benefit, right? They're a benefit. And my concerns used to be mainly about the core being weaker. We know that's not the case now. We've always known that belts improve strength, and they improve strength by improving neuromuscular efficiency because you can use your core to brace against things, thus elevating intra-abdominal pressure and potentially letting you produce more force with your muscles as a result, just like gripping the bar harder does the same thing. Okay? It's not about protecting your back. It is not about protecting your back. Belts will not prevent an injury. Okay, they're not going to help protect you at all. And that would be our only concern with novices putting on belts is what? That they might think that the belt is there to protect their back and they can do stupid crap. Because most novices really don't know what they're doing, and that's a reality of it. I coach enough people, and I've coached enough people who are novices who have been following stuff and read all the books and have been training for a while. And you coach enough people that you realize the majority of novices really and truly don't know what they're doing. And that would be our biggest concern with the belt. That they might magically think it protects their back, so therefore they're just going to use crappy bad form on things. So if we come back over to the main point of belts have the potential to help us basically make our muscles work harder, and our goal is to make the muscles work hard, it would make sense a belt to be fine for novices. I have no problem with a novice putting a belt on. Now, is the belt going to help the novice? Well, maybe not. It might not do anything for them. It might have just been a waste of money this early. Right? It might not help them in any way. It won't hurt them in any way either other than they had to pay for a belt. And they're going to need a belt eventually anyways. But they paid for a belt. It's a downside. The only other downside might be that what? They might think the belt is going to protect their back. And therefore they might try to do things they wouldn't otherwise do, in which case that would be a negative. So at what point will a novice benefit from the belt? Right? Because people say, well, when should a novice get a belt? I don't know. You get a good belt as soon as you start lifting. You're going to need it anyways. Why not get the investment and get it broke in on the front side? I have no problem with that. So the question is not when could they get a belt. When will they benefit from a belt? Well, they'll benefit from a belt when they're technically proficient on their exercises and they learn how to brace their core. Okay? That's when a belt becomes useful. That's when a belt becomes useful. When you know how to brace your core and you're technically proficient. Because again, why do we wear the belt? To help us recruit muscle fibers faster, right? Upper threshold motor units. Because we can brace against the belt and increase our neural efficiency. So we can explode harder, right? Well, is that of use to someone who doesn't have good form yet? No. Someone who doesn't have decent form needs to learn how to lift. They need to learn how to perform the bench press. They need to learn how to perform the squat. They need to learn how to perform the deadlift. And if your idea of performing a bench press is to flop down on the bench flat back and have your feet dance around instead of being dug so hard into the ground that you can't move them, when you just lay on the bench with your back completely flat, your stomach down, not up in the air, with your diaphragm compressed, right? Like, you don't bench with a big belly full of air on just your traps and your glutes touching the bench and you're not tight, you won't get anything out of a belt, okay? So yeah, they wouldn't benefit from a belt in any way. They're not braced or tight at all, therefore the belt's going to do nothing. They don't even know how to perform a bench press. They need to have someone show them. They need to watch my tutorial on how to bench press. That's what they need to do. Somebody goes to squat and they don't know where to place the bar correctly. They can't pull their elbows in and get their scapula down and back and their elbows pointed down. They don't know how to get tight. Okay, they don't know how to get tight. Therefore, they won't benefit from the belt. They will not benefit from the belt in any way because they haven't learned how to get tight yet. Now, they shouldn't even be adding weight to the bar yet either. That person needs to sit there with still 75 pounds on the bar and practice reps until they can learn how to get tighter. They have no business adding weight to the bar yet. So obviously they're not going to benefit from a belt. They don't need more force production to push a heavier weight harder. They need to learn how to perform the exercise. And if they're that loose, they definitely don't know how to brace. So they will not benefit from a belt yet. You guys see a trend here? See a trend? Guy who performs deadlift. I don't know, can he pull his scapula down and back? Notice there's a reoccurring theme with the scapula down and back. Right? Has he learned how to take a deep, full breath and have full lungs out of the bottom of the deadlift? So he can actually press his abdominal wall against a belt? Tight on the deadlift yet? Does he pull back when he comes up, or do his hips shoot way up in the air? Okay, if his hips are shooting way up in the air, he's clearly not tight, can't brace his core, not going to benefit from a belt. So which of these guys will benefit from a belt? The guy who, when he squats, he can keep his head up. He can keep his scapula down and back and his elbows down. He has full lungs and a deep breath with his abs braced at the bottom of a squat. That guy, no matter how much weight he has on the bar, who is now ready to start adding weight, he's ready to load the exercise, that guy can benefit from a belt now. He could benefit from a belt. Same thing with the deadlifter. The guy who's learned how to brace correctly on the deadlift and whose ass doesn't shoot 17 feet into the air before the weight breaks off the ground. Like, if the guy whose ass is no longer hitting the ceiling and knocking lights and stuff off before the weight breaks off the floor. Like, I don't even see how these guys do this sometimes. Like, I see guys who I'm like, you aren't even tall enough for your ass to shoot that high up in the air. Like, how did it get above your head? Like, what? And then they break the weight off the floor. It's like, holy hell. I didn't realize that guy's butt would go that high in the air at all, at any point, even standing up straight. They do it somehow. Right? But if he can keep his butt down, and he can brace and have full lungs and be pulled in tight and press his abdominal wall against a belt, that guy can now benefit from a belt. He's ready to add weight to the bar. How about the bench? Guy who's learned how to perform a basic arch, whose feet are dug in hard to the floor and his feet can't move. The guy who's doing a leg extension into the floor trying to put his feet through the concrete. Whose scapula are pulled in tight down and back on the bench, whose traps and glutes are touching the bench. Nothing else. The only part of his body in contact with the bench. Who has full lungs and a full belly full of air when he bench presses. That guy will now benefit from a belt on the bench. Even if he's working with the empty bar, he's ready to start adding weight now. He could benefit from a belt. Right, this is pretty straightforward. When you are proficient on an exercise and ready to load it, that is when you are ready to put a belt on. It's very simple. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.